Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit, but don't tell anyone. I never understood why this gospel gets split in two, right? That this story picks up next Sunday, and maybe it's just kind of for the soap opera benefit of the dun 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 moment. Because do you remember how this story ends? Right, so this is fulfilled in your hearing it. This is verse 21, Luke 4, verse 21. Next week starts at 21, the rest of 21, where it says, they were all amazed. And then they asked, isn't this Joseph's son? It crashes right there, right? They're no longer amazed. They start to come up with reasons why they don't believe him. And that story ends with them pushing him out of the synagogue, leading him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, and they intended to hurl him headlong off of this cliff. That's how it ends. A couple weeks ago, I wasn't here because I was back at my home parish. The Oblates have run St. Mary's in Adrian since I was a little kid, and Pastor Mike needed to go, so I came in. Love to be home. It's always great to be home. Always gives me a chance to practice my Spanish too. Love seeing the people that helped nurture my faith, challenge my faith, meet the new people in the parish. But I have never been back and not reminded them of this story, that when he went home, they tried to kill him. And it's always, please don't, please don't. There's only one brow in all of Adrian, and it's not near the church, so I feel pretty safe. But seriously, what is that? Except to say, don't miss this point. This is the first action of his public ministry in Luke. I think it was Father John Foley that points out, and it's the forecast for the rest of his life. First loved and accepted, then led to death. That's just what keeps happening to him. Up to and including Palm Sunday, Hosanna, Hosanna. Just a few days later, crucify him. Same people, same crowd. First loved and accepted, then led to death. Why? And again, let us not just throw this onto our brothers and sisters in antiquity and say, why did they do that? Except for us to then put ourselves in the position and say, why do we do that? Why do we push back on what it is that he asks of us? And I guess it just depends on how we see our faith. Pope Francis said recently, and I think it's very telling, he's like, if you have a faith that doesn't lead you to question, then you probably have a questionable faith. If you have a faith that isn't asking you to grow, well, you need a faith that's seeking for you to grow. If you have a faith that isn't troubling to you on some level, then that's a troubled faith. And he's like, and if your faith isn't asking for you to be shaken, guess what? We need to be shaken. And so the two words that come to mind for us are static and dynamic. How do we see our faith? Because I think that's what's happening for this synagogue group here. It's a static faith. They know what they believe, but there's no room for the dynamic. The static is the settled, right? And the dynamic is where there's a capability for action. Maybe you've heard those two words used about your internet protocol, your IP address. You can have a static IP address or a dynamic one that changes. And again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that our faith is, up for huge discussion on things. It's that it's both and. It's both, as St. Augustine once said, ever ancient, ever new. There are things that we stand firmly on in hope. But then there are the things that we encounter that are specific to our experience. And in this story, we see a group of really good people. Well, I said you got to cheat into next Sunday. That doesn't end well. They end up in a position, I doubt, that they would be excited to hear that we read that story. So what about us? Does our faith allow us to question? Can we look at the spaces that we find ourselves in right now to let God meet us there? And so that our questions and our trouble and our need for growth and our need to be shaken, like a good 2-liter of pop, shake it up, open it up. That scares us on some level. I get it. But again, it's not either or, it's both and. Because there are spaces and times for us that we just can't. We just can't go there. And the God who loved us into existence says that's okay. God can wait. God is infinitely patient. God will wait as long as it takes for us to be in that space, to courageously step forward, to ask the difficult questions, to take the things that are troubling us and bring them to him. But sometimes it's too new or it's too raw, and God just waits. That's okay. Sometimes it's both and. But we've got to be honest with ourselves and say that it is both and. It's not either or. It's not either the staticness of it or we'll push it away. That's what we're really good at as humans. We're really good at pushing away that which is going to challenge us or just ignoring it. But perfect love does not manipulate. Perfect love does not cajole. It's just waiting. It's a gentle invitation. Tomorrow's the feast of St. Francis de Sales. This is why he loved that verse about where Jesus reveals it of himself. Take your yoke upon me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, he said. Gentle and humble. So that the invitation to confront all those things in our faith is a gentle and humble one. To be gently shaken. To be humbly asking those questions. That's the invitation. As I said, there's so much that's always going on in our individual life. But here we are in the midst of so much in our world, so much in our country that may be challenging for us, that may be difficult for us to understand. Well, we got to bring that to our faith. That's the dynamism of it. That's the dynamic nature of it. That word, by the way, is in John's gospel, one of the words used in Greek for miracle, dynamis. Dynamis, which is where we get our word dynamite. It is an explosion that we don't control it. That's the love that conquers sin and death. There's the invitation for us to hold them together wherever you find yourself today, really keenly aware of all the goodness, whether you're really keenly aware of all that it is broken or disintegrated, wherever you find yourself. That the guy who opened that scroll and read the good news, liberty to captives, a year acceptable to the Lord, the blind see, all that. He reads that and says, not just to them 2,000 years ago, but to you and I today. Today, brothers and sisters, today, this is fulfilled in your hearing it. It's fulfilled in your hearing it. So let us claim that. Let us claim that statically. It's true. It's always been true. And then dynamically into our particular life and existence right now today. We never have to do that alone. We're in a community. And he's going to offer us his real presence to be strengthened for it. So that when we need to ask questions, we can. When we are troubled, we can bring that trouble to him. When we're aware of a need for growth in a space, we can feel nurtured enough to do it. And if we need to be shaken up, we know the God that will do that is the God that said in the Old Testament, a bruised reed he's not going to crush. He's going to be the love that we need in that space. And so on a cold, gray, snowy day, all that's going on in our world, can we start this day by hearing him say it to us, not just what he said to them 2,000 years ago, but to say to us, today, I'm fulfilling this for you. And then what's our response to it? What's our response going to be to his saying that? Is it to lead him to the cliff and go, I can't. I'm going to push you off here. Because just remember, at the end of the story, it just says, and he passed through them. We don't know how he did that. This whole crowd led him to the cliff, and somehow he just passed through them. I don't know if they lost interest or how it is that he got through there. But just as when they finally push him to the cross and they kill him, well, he resurrects. That's the power that's ours today in his word, in this Eucharist, so that when we leave here, it's different than we came in. There's always an invitation in his word and in his sacrament. Maybe we're ready for it today, or maybe we're just really tired and can't quite get our hands around that. But the God who loved us into existence is saying, here you go, gently, humbly. Take me within you. May God be praised.